now we have Social Democrats Deputy Holly Kearns, and you've 7.5 minutes, Deputy.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. And I won't be using all of my time, so I'll be giving the rest of it to Deputy Jackie Cahill, if that's okay. Thank you. In many ways, I welcome this bill and any changes that will help improve animal welfare and afforestation. Regarding the phasing out of fur farming, it's fair to say that this is a situation of the law catching up with societal changes. The majority of people are deeply uncomfortable with the idea that an animal would be raised for the purpose of using their fur or skin. While there was a time when this was acceptable and fur clothing was sought after, we have moved on. As a country of animal lovers, it is overdue that we phase out this practice. This bill provides a mechanism to compensate those whose livelihoods depend on fur farming. It is a fair approach that acknowledges the impact of the legislation. This represents the type of arrangements we need to help farmers and others move from one practice to another. The amendments to the Forestry Act are a sensible and overdue change. This will allow the small-scale planting of native trees as part of agriculture and forestry schemes. This is something I've advocated for to encourage farmers and landowners to increase our afforestation of native broadleaf varieties. Sections of forestry on all farms will not only help increase our overall afforestation goals, but will foster greater biodiversity and facilitate wildlife corridors. It's something I've mentioned before in this House, but I think it's important to mention it again. There is a kind of aversion to the planting of trees in Ireland on farms, and it's something that we did on our farm about 15 years ago when it became unviable in terms of dairy because of the change in the industry and how small our farm was. And I've said it before that I remember in the election somebody saying they wouldn't vote for me because we had ruined that farm with trees. And we still, farm half of it with beef, but the focus of the farm is now seed production. But I have to say that even though there was a kind of resistance to doing that in the first place, the forestry is now our favourite part of the farm. So people should give it a chance. These legislative changes are important to address the concerns of farmers who have called for greater assistance and less bureaucracy in facilitating tree planting. The policy and regulatory changes that will follow this legislation need to adhere to this principle to enable as many small farms as possible to avail of the schemes. However, this move cannot detract from the need to clear the forestry licensing backlogs and the greater afforestation strategy. We need consistency from the government on these issues, and I've sought clarification on the 7 million in capital expenditure, which is due to be moved from the forestry budget. And I'm currently working with the community in Riverstick and Cork to prevent the sale of a substantial part of a public forest. And I appreciate if both the ministers would look into this, because I don't know at a time when we're trying to meet our COP26 obligations and all of that, why we would be selling public forestry, of mixed species like that. I just don't know how we square that circle with our commitments. While the amendments to allow small-scale native tree planting is a positive development, we needed to form part of a holistic forestry approach. And just finally, I'm unfortunately not a member of the Agriculture Committee, but in speaking to members, it seems these two changes being lumped together has come a bit unexpected and last minute and unexplained. So I'd echo their calls for clarity and more information on this, and an explanation from ministers in their replies would be great. Thank you, Cathaoirleach.